This is Scott Welch, Muscle Insider Magazine. I'm here with Jennifer Dorie, Canadian IFBB Pro. How are you doing today, Jen?
I'm doing awesome, Scott. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Awesome. So listen, let's go back to Tampa. You've had time to recover. You had a third place finishing. You were the favorite going into it, one of the favorites, but it was almost like an Olympia return that we sort of saw. And, a lot of the guys who, people are following all the men's open and the different classes, but believe it or not, I was actually saying, man, I actually want to see the bikini class because it's like they're the Olympia all over again. What did that feel like going into that contest with those people going in?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was almost like a mini Olympia just because of the quality of athletes we had competing there. One, it was a huge show. I think there was almost 40 athletes in the bikini division.
Wow.
So in itself, the quantity of athletes was big, but also the quality of athletes was so high. It was such a competitive show. We had Issa, who previously won the Olympia. We had myself, we had Laura Lee, she was runner-up at the Olympia in 2018. And then we had a bunch of other big names there doing the shows, people who had previously qualified and won pro shows, a couple of weeks ago. So there was a lot of big names there. And I think definitely a lot of pressure, going into that show for many reasons. And kind of like you just touched on, I did win that show last year, and then I did just come off second place at the Olympia. This was my first show back after an off season. So seeing, how was I going to look on stage there? And then of course, coaching myself this year with the help of my boyfriend, Mark Anthony. There's a lot of changes and stuff like that. People were looking to see, is Issa going to come back with a vengeance from her Olympia 6th place? Is she going to bring it? And, is Laura Lee just came off her Chicago Pro win? Is she going to come in and win the show? So I think that there was just a lot of excitement built up from the spectator side, but also from the athlete side. So for me, I mean, I was excited to get on that stage because I knew the competition and the stakes were so high. But at the same time, I was definitely nervous and there was a lot of pressure. So that's kind of just
Daraja Hill is, I understand she's a friend of yours. She was 14th last year at the Olympia. She comes out of nowhere to play second. It was just threw us all off, and it's just amazing to see that kind of improvement. What did that feel like? Because you guys are friends. So what did it feel like to see her play so well? You're obviously very competitive, but how did it feel?
Yes, I mean, she's been killing it this year. She came out and I think she was second at one of the other shows she did this year. She won a show and then she was second, and then she came here and was second as well. So she's been competing already this year. I think this was her third or fourth show this year. So she really just hit her peak. She nailed it. She came in looking amazing. And I think that was her best package yet. And she really owned the stage when she was on stage. So as much as, of course, we go in to win the show, I knew I wasn't at my 100% just because it was my first show of the season. It's tough to nail that, first show of the season. It generally takes a bit of time and peaking to get into your top condition. So I couldn't help but be happy for her because I knew she nailed her conditioning. She nailed her peak, and she really deserved that placing. I mean, her and Issa both look phenomenal. So I can't complain if someone shows up better,
Jennifer Dorie, though, let's focus on you. What are you going to change now that the fans are going to see at the next show? I believe you said you're competing in Nashville next.
Yes, sir. Nashville next weekend, August 21st. So like I said, going into the show, my first show of the season, coming off of an off season, it is tough to nail that conditioning, especially in my lower half. As a female, generally that tends to be the case for most females. So for me, I think I needed an extra week or two just to really nail that 100%. I'd say I was probably at 90% of my best there. And that's kind of the feedback that I got from the judges. I was off by a hair in terms of my legs and my lower half conditioning. And it would just come down to like just a smidge leaner, a smidge tighter, not by too much because they don't want to see me too hard. So like half a pound difference basically. So that's why the goal is to do Nashville. I'm going to be bringing in a little bit leaner there. We're already leaner right now, so we'll definitely be leaner on stage. And then the goal is to win Nashville and head into the Arnold and Olympia with some good feedback.
Now, something that we got to talk about is that you are right now qualified for Olympia in terms of leading points, but that doesn't guarantee that you're actually qualified for Olympia. Can you just explain to the fans exactly how that works and what's going on with that?
Yeah, so what they do this year with the Olympia qualification series, I believe there's 25 plus shows for bikini. So it's basically if you win, you're in, is how the system works. So if you win a show, you're qualified for the Olympia automatically. And then they are going to take the top 5 in the point standing. And those top 5 will get to go to Olympia as well, along with all of the winners of each pro show this year. So for me, I think I'm 3rd place in the point standing right now, just from points that I had from Olympia last year and then from Tampa just now. But like you said, that doesn't 100% guarantee me that Olympia qualification in case someone who's below me on that points ends up jumping up and bumping me down. So that's kind of the reasoning behind going into Nashville, to try and win that show, to really secure that qualification so I can focus on the Arnolds and then focus on the Olympia.
Your fellow Canadian IFBB pro Ian Valliere is taking a lot of criticism from some fans that are saying that he might be taking away a qualification from another athlete who could be competing, obviously trying to make the Olympic qualification because he's already Olympic qualified. But in your case, you could be pushed out of the qualification if you don't sort of defend yourself. So that reason, and obviously you having HD Muscle as a sponsor, and you obviously building your own coaching business up, you have to keep your brand being built and continue to showcase. And I think what you're doing is great, because there's fans in different cities that want to see these people, want to see what it's like to obviously see them on stage and see them compete. And as you touched on it, you seem to get better as the season goes on. Is that correct?
100%. So I think for most people that tends to be the case, especially for me, I usually get leaner in my legs as the season goes on, and I really peak for my 100%. The goal is to peak, you know, at my absolute best for the Arnolds and the Olympia, and kind of pacing myself for that. So like I said, Tampa, I wasn't 100% on, and I kind of knew that going into the show, but I still wanted to, you know, do what I could and bring my best there with the time given. So another reason why I'm doing another show is just because I obviously want to show up at 100% and get that feedback from the judges headed into the Arnold to make sure, you know, I'm hitting the mark exactly where they want me to. So I show up looking 100% for the Arnolds of where they want. You know, if they want me a little bit leaner, a little bit less lean after the show, that way I'll be able to make those changes from there. And like you said, with the whole stealing the qualification thing, I think there's kind of two sides to that you can look at it. At the end of the day, though, we are professional athletes. It's a competition, so you should welcome the competition. I mean, if someone is showing up to do a show and they're a great athlete, that's just more competition for you. And, you know, show up and be better and try and beat them instead of getting upset over it. So I don't really see that it's an issue if someone wants to show up and do a show if they've already qualified. I'm sure Ian probably had it in his plans as like a backup plan or something, or to get further feedback or to try out something new sometimes. So, I mean, if he looks incredible at Tampa, he's going to show up to Texas looking incredible. So, I mean, everyone else better just make sure they're on their A game.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to do a share screen function here, and we're going to take the people back to, first of all, we got your contest history here. Obviously here, third place, second at the Olympia. Started off though, third place Toronto Pro 2018, but you've done a lot of shows over the years. And by the looks of this, it wasn't your first time in Tampa either. You've got a 2018, you were second, and then obviously 19, you didn't compete in 2019 in Tampa, but in 2020 you were first, and then obviously third in this one. That's really cool. For those of you who want to check that out, obviously check out muscleinsider.com for that. Want to go over though, right now is the call out, the first call out. So we're going to go over that right now with people. They can see it. Thanks to Muscular Development for providing this one. There you are. So what was going on did you kind of figure those would be the 6 girls that you'd be standing beside when you were getting into this show?
Yeah, so I think that everyone kind of had their top picks for top 3 to be, you know, Issa, Dorie, and myself, just because, you know, coming off of Dorie's win that she just had, Issa being a previous Olympia champ, myself coming off of being second at the Olympia. And I think a lot of people had Daraja in, you know, a 4th place spot, and they really underestimated how good she was going to come in. But I kind of figured that would be the top 5 lineup. And then when we were on stage, it kind of shifted things around a little bit, and it just ended up how it ended up.
Phenomenal. Yeah, no, I mean, we were happy for all of you guys. I mean, obviously we're rooting for the Canadians up there with you and Laura Lee, but you couldn't help but just sort of seeing the lineup, and they all look great, obviously, but it's
a great lineup, yeah.
Now, in terms of this, I'm just going to go here, minimizing this for a second here. I want to show fans something. 1 second. Okay. All right, so we are just going to stop this somehow. All right, there we go. Sometimes it kicks out that way. Okay, so now I want to show people something, the transformation here. Okay, so this is you. Left is Olympia,
Mhm.
To the right is Tampa.
Mhm.
What are the changes that you made in your physique that you were focusing on from obviously the Olympia into this show now? Like what were you working on in the off season?
Yeah, so for me, after Olympia, I was told really not to change too much. Don't get any leaner, don't grow any more muscle, don't put on any more size anywhere else, just kind of bring that same package. So for me, it wasn't an opportunity to grow in my off season necessarily. There was a little bit of tweaks that I wanted to make, adding a little bit more upper body fullness. But I wasn't really supposed to be growing or changing too much. I was kind of just trying to maintain that same physique and just give my body a rest period to have some time off after a really long season. I think I was prepping for about 11 months last year. So it was a much needed break after that. But I think you can see here in the front pose, my waist was actually a lot tighter this show.
Yeah.
I do think this is probably the tightest my waist has ever been. So I was really happy with that. My hair and my makeup came together really great for this show, and just overall balance and flow with my physique was the goal. Keeping, top to bottom, front to back, really proportional, really balanced, and just maintaining that shape for bikini. Nice shoulders, small waist, round glutes. That's really essentially what they're looking for with bikini. And then that conditioning is going to be different person to person. Some people can get away with being a little bit harder because it looks better on their frame. Some people are a little bit softer. Me personally, I tend to do better being a little bit harder, just so my legs come down, because I do have a lot of muscle in my legs. So that's just kind of what it comes down to.
Shoulders look improvement. You looked improved in the shoulders,
Thank
and
you.
your color looks better now. It could be the lighting.
Yes. Yeah.
But with
So
that, what did you do different on the color side?
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, actually, because one of the judges, Bill, when I got off stage and talking, he was like, one thing I have to say is your tan was perfect for the first time ever, because I'm super pale. So I always have a lot of issues with the tan. My skin just doesn't hold the tan very well. So I always tend to be too light on stage, or it's not sitting on my skin well. So we started tanning me on the Wednesday. I did a base coat. I work with ProTan, so they helped me out with all of my tanning. And they mixed a bit of the super dark color here. So that's why I had that nice reddish brown color. And I think that it just sat really well on my skin this time.
Taking you through here are some of the photos that our good friend Simon Lau took of you in Tampa. Lower back really developed, glutes are tight, hamstrings quite good, quad flare, but not obviously too muscular. But no, the tan is just phenomenal. Great color as a whole.
Yeah, they did a great job. ProTan, they always nail it. So they did awesome.
Amazing. No, it's good. Okay, so listen, what I'm going to go back now and say to you, what is now the plans? Obviously, going in, you've got your 1 week out, I guess, and you're in Las Vegas, and so Nashville's quite. I mean, what, a 2-hour flight?
I think it's 3.5
3
hours
hours?
or something
Okay.
like that. About
Okay.
3 hours nonstop.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then what date will you arrive there so that there's no water retention from the altitude or anything like that?
So I fly in, same thing as I did for Tampa. I find it's best for me to fly in on Tuesday evening. That way I get accustomed to, one, the time difference, but also the difference in climate there, because here, obviously, I live in the desert, so it's super dry and super hot here. And then the time, I'm on Pacific time here. So when I went to Tampa, for example, that was 3 hours time difference. And then obviously the weather was very different with being humid there versus super dry here. So same thing with Nashville. I'm going to fly in on Tuesday night, and then I have a couple days to get accustomed and acclimated.
Okay. Now, listen, I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Laura Lee. Now, you're technically Canadian, but you're living in the United States. So when the Olympics were going on, which team, which country were you rooting for? Were you kind of pulled over to the side?
Canada.
You were rooting for both. Oh, you.
I'm Canadian all the way. I mean, even if
Yeah.
I live here, I was actually a little bit upset because I was like, oh no, they put Las Vegas instead of Canada
Yeah.
beside my name. And it's something that's important to me. I'm Canadian, and I really value that. So I will always want Canada to be beside my name, especially when I go to the Olympia, to hear them call out, Jennifer Dorie from Ontario,
Sure.
Canada. It's just like a great sound to hear. So definitely Canada all the way, even when I'm living here.
Now, with COVID, have you been able to come to Canada to visit your family or anything like that? Or have you stayed in the US?
Yeah, I haven't been to Canada since last year.
Wow.
So I've been staying here just with everything going on.
Yeah.
And the travel is pretty hectic to get into Canada. So I've just been here for the past year.
Amazing. Okay, well, listen, I know it's busy. It's a Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time. And you know what? We're really happy to see you. Can't wait to see you next week. And it's just
Yeah.
great to see you represent Canada well, and you just continually to making improvements and improvements. And you've just been such a good role model. For people who want to get coaching from you or anything like that, where can they reach you?
So you can email me at jendorie@fitbodyfusion.com. That's Jen with one N, or you can DM me and I can send you a link on there as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time for us. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.